Hi guys, today I'm going to be doing my best books of 2020, which happens to be 30 books. I'm so happy because my worst books of 2020 was only 20 books and I read 200 books, so to get 30 out of 200, I am so exceptionally proud of myself. I do have a top 10, but in this top 10 there's no book that's like higher than the other. Literally cannot pick out of all of them. I have some books that don't own physically. The first book is The Secret Girl, and this book is a reverse harem dark romance book. If you don't know what reverse harem is, it's like one of my favorite subgenres of dark romance or romance in general, and it's basically where there's one girl and like a group of guys. So you usually get a found family trope, and she either gets with all the guys or all the guys are interested with her and she only really dates one. And so The Secret Girl literally reminds me of She's the Man, where it's just this girl and she's going to this school and she's pretending to be a boy. It's mostly to help like find information about stuff, and then she ends up getting involved with like the students who basically own the school and like keep everyone in check, you know, typical popular boy stuff. And this school is a boarding school, by the way, and all boys boarding school. And she ends up finding some secrets and some drama. I just love this book so much. Like, it was so wild, it was filled with drama, it literally had like a whole mystery aspect to it. Like, this book had it all, and it got 5 stars for me. And then the next book is Credence, and this book is a very polarizing book because it's about this girl whose parents died. They were famous. Her dad was a director and her mom was a actress, and they were like madly in love with each other, so in love with each other that they didn't pay the girl any attention. And when they died, she's only 17. She's about to turn 18 in a few weeks, so she is sent to go live with her step uncle that she's never met before a day in her life. And she does end up falling in love with the 2 sons, and it's like her figuring out like which one of the 2 that she's going to be with. And I liked it because I like it took place in Colorado, and if you know me, you know my dream is to live in Colorado in a house filled with plants by a lake, and like I can go swimming by the lake and like read books by the lake, and then in the winter time I can like have me a little fireplace. And like that is literally my dream life, is to just live secluded in Colorado. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, I think about this every night before bed, and that's why I enjoyed this book, because it literally was Colorado but in the winter time, and like they literally have to like prepare for winter, and their jobs are literally taking care of like the house and the animals and things like that. And like I'm like, this is the life I want to live. And so then the next book is Ruthless Night, and this book is a sequel to a book called Cruel Prince, not to be mistaken with the Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This is Cruel Prince by A. Jade, and it is a high school bully romance, because one of my favorite subgenres is bully romance. It's drama that nobody can give you, and it gives you the enemies to lovers or rivals to lovers that I've been looking for. A lot of authors just say their book is enemies to lovers, so you'll read it and then you read the book and you're like, what is this? This book is the sequel to a book, and this book follows the best friend of the main character and then the brother of the love interest, and it just follows their drama. And I really like this book because I like the main character. I thought that she was really strong, and she wasn't like every other main character. Like, she didn't just like, whenever the main guy would say something mean to her, she didn't just cower down. Like, she literally punched one of the mean girls in the face. Like, period. When you get that in a book, like, she literally was like she wasn't scared of anything, and obviously she had her scared moments, but she wasn't fearful of anyone, and just because they were mean to her didn't mean she was gonna back down. Like, she stood up to them a lot. This also has fake dating and pining, and it was so dramatic. I love dark romances because they just have so much drama, and it does deal with some dark topics. And I would not say do not go into this book if you are like into lighthearted stuff, because this book does talk about like a lot of dark things. And the last book on my not physical is Fake It Till You Break It, and this book is about the same author who wrote Boys of Berkshire High, which I loved last year and never ended up finishing because one of the plot lines I just was not feeling. So Fake It Till You Break It is about this girl who lives, it was either next door in the same neighborhood as like the bad boy. He's on the football team, the player, da da da. She's interested in one of the other football players on the team. Now, the football player on this team is the bad boy's enemy. So he comes up with this plan to fake date her because the bad boy and her crush both hate each other, and her crush pays her no attention. So she's on the dance team, like she dances at their football games sometimes, and he doesn't pay her any attention. Like she's in the popular crowd, but like not really, and he literally doesn't pay her any mind at all. So the bad boy comes up with this plot to fake date her. And I love books that like have fake dating, but it's the guy has like a secret agenda. Like he's so protective of her, and she'll be like, dude, why are you protective? Like we're not dating for real. And he'll be like, but that's just how boyfriends are. And I just love when guys have that, he's like secretly in love with her for a while kind of thing. And like he hated that she had a crush on the other guy because that was like his enemy, so he was doing this to get a rise out of him. It was just an ego trip for the guys, and I just thought it was like so entertaining. It was like a 4-star book. It wasn't really 5-star. Before I get into these books, I want to say that a lot of these books, like, they weren't all 5-star reads, but they're books that like I think about all the time, even though I gave them 4 stars. So the first book we're gonna have is Heartstopper, and I do not rate graphic novels, but I really enjoyed this. Usually every time I talk about a graphic novel, I'm like, I don't rate graphic novels, but if I did, I would give it this many stars. I personally don't like to rate graphic novels because I read purely based off the art. I think that the story is fine too, but literally if I don't enjoy the art, I'm not gonna enjoy it as much. So I don't think that it's fair to the authors for me to rate them, which is why I don't. But if I were to rate this, I would give this 5 out of 5 stars. This was so cute. It's our Charlie and Nick, and it's Charlie knowing that he is gay and Nick really just being a good person to him. And it's just like a friends to lovers book, and I just, first of all, I'm so obsessed with these covers. Like they're so cute. I haven't continued on with the series yet because I suck at buying graphic novels and I haven't bought the rest of these yet, but I'm gonna be like catching up soon. I really love this book. I thought it was super cute. I don't really like friends to lovers, but I ate this book up. The only thing I want to say is that it makes me so sad that the art isn't colorful, but that didn't take away from my enjoyment. I just hate that it was in black and white, but I love the art in this book so much, and I'm pretty sure Alice Oseman writes and draws these themselves. The next book on this list is Someone We Know, and this is a thriller. 2020 I really got into thrillers, and this is one of the thrillers that I like literally ate up. So this book is about this neighborhood and someone dies in it. It follows different families, and it follows one family whose son literally was robbing houses the night before. It follows the husband of the wife who died, and everyone is suspecting him to be the killer. As always, they always suspect the husband, which I mean, like, why not? It follows like the entire neighborhood basically, and I really just enjoyed this book because it had so much drama in it. I love drama in my books. Drama and thrillers are just even better. Like, it was silly petty drama, and it was stupid, and it low-key didn't make sense, but I didn't care because I thought it was fun. Like, I read it in a few hours. I listened to the audiobook. I remember listening to it. It was like my off day. I literally just sat in the dark and listened to this audiobook all day long, and I enjoyed it. The next book is a historical fiction, and this is When a Scot Ties the Knot, and this is a part of the Castle Ever After because 2020 I got into historical fiction. Okay, so basically I really enjoyed this story because I love the plot lines and historical romance because I feel like they're so fleshed out and just very interesting. This book follows the main character who everyone in her family wants her to get married, and she just is not really, it's not that she's not interested in men right now, but she's just not really thinking about them. So she comes up with this plan to write fake letters to this guy, and turns out that this guy is real and he's been getting her letters, and he comes to find her and he fake marries her. And yeah, so it's about fake dating, and I just thought the plot line about her writing to a guy that ended up being real was just so interesting. And then they end up fake dating, and I really loved it because it had like a jealousy scene, and I love jealousy scenes. Like, y'all know I love my jealousy in books, so whatever. I personally think that it is healthy as long as it's not too much, but to be honest, I don't care still. So I ate this book up, and it was one of my first historical romances, and it was a good way to be brought into the genre. The next book is another mass market pickback, and this is Burn For Me. So this is a book that Mika has been telling me about for years. The thing with Mika is she could recommend me a book and I could love it, or she could recommend me a book and I can hate it. So sometimes when she recommends me books, I'm just like, I brush them off until later. But it was October and it was spooky season, and this book is a paranormal romance, so I decided to give it a read, and I actually really loved it. So this book is about a girl, and she is a PI, and this world has like a bunch of magic, and if you have magic you're more special. She doesn't have any magic, and so she is set to work with the police to find this guy who's like really evil. And they basically set her up because if she doesn't find him, they're just gonna put the blame on her because she's a PI, and so she has no choice but to do it. And so she does it, and this guy ends up kidnapping her. They end up working together, and it was just such a wild ride, and I enjoyed it. I love the main two characters. I thought that the love interest was so interesting. I love the family in this book. I really love books where it has a good family relationship, and this book 100% has that, and I ate it up. The next book I have on this list is The Night Swim. If you guys remember, I read this book in October and I ate it up. This book is basically about this girl who has this podcast, and in this podcast she usually just works on regular trials, and in this podcast she is working on a trial. It is a rape trial which she's never done before, and then while she's in this town, this girl ends up sending her a note basically saying that her sister died and was found in the ocean, I believe it was, and everyone just wrote it as suicide when she knows for a fact that it wasn't. And so the main character is looking into both cases, and they both coexist at once. And I just thought it was so interesting because it touched about such hard topics and such deep topics. And I was listening to this at work, and I remember like literally having to go to the bathroom to like cry because it was just so much. But I just love the way that they discuss things in this book, and I really hope that the author writes more books, but specifically like turns this into a series, because not only do I love this cover, but I just thought that the idea of a podcast, just watching her go on these crimes, were just so interesting, and I would love to see that more. The next book is, I picked up the wrong freaking book. It's supposed to be The King of Elfham. I have nothing much to say about it. It's just a bunch of short stories. I loved it. 5 out of 5 stars. She could have released a book and it could have just been 1 page and I would have given it 5 stars. Like, I literally have nothing to say about it. Then I have The Dragon Republic, which is the second book in the Poppy War. I'm going to be reading the 3rd book this year, and I am so excited. I love this book. I love Naja. This book is, like I said, the second book in the Poppy War series or trilogy, and the Poppy War is basically just about this girl named Rain, and she wants to be in the military because there is a war going on between, essentially it's a fantasy China and a fantasy Japan, and it deals with heavy drug abuse. With their drug is opium, and I love the Poppy War. Rin is my favorite character. I got a lot of favorite characters from this book. It has a lot of my favorite tropes, which is like found family, the only girl in a group of guys, just there's a lot of backstabbing, betrayal, and I just love this book so much. It took so long for me to start the Poppy War because I felt like I wasn't smart enough to read it, just because by reading the description I just didn't think I would understand it. I thought it was going to be so hard. I thought it was going to be like this complex fantasy, and it really wasn't, and it was so easy for me to understand, and I flew through it, and I flew through this book. I'm going to fly through The Burning Guide, and I'm going to give it 5 stars, so I already know that. Next book I have is Percy Jackson. It's supposed to be Percy Jackson 1 and 2, but once again, my brother still has Percy Jackson 1, so this book, if you don't know what Percy Jackson is, then come on now, I'm not going to explain it to you. I read Percy Jackson for the first time this year. Well, not the first time. I actually read the first book already, and I've kind of read the second book, but I was reading it for a vlog, but I ended up scrapping the vlog, and I probably won't be doing the vlog just because I already have all my videos planned out until March anyways, so I just don't have time to do this. But I enjoyed the book. I thought it was really fun. I was scared to go into it because I thought that, like, because it was middle grade and because it was so old, that I wasn't gonna have any fun. But I kind of knew that I was, because I love the Percy Jackson movies. Like, say what you want about the Percy Jackson movies, I thought the first and second movie were good. I wasn't a huge fan of the books growing up, and I never read the books, so I personally enjoyed the movies. I was a huge fan of Logan Lerman. I ate them up, so I ate the books up, so I don't care. Next book is Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. This book I gave 4.5 out of 5 stars. I'm going to be talking about From Blood and Ash a little later, so I'm not really going to go into this book because this is a sequel to From Blood and Ash, which I read earlier this year. But this book was given to me by a subscriber because I have the hardcovers and then I have the paperbacks, and I just thought that the person who gave this to me was so sweet, and I felt so bad because I never was able to thank them, because this was around the time when I stopped doing monthly hauls, and I already had this book on my shelf when I ended up doing the hauls, and I just feel so bad that I never got to thank the person. So if you are Jessica and you sent me this book, thank you so much, and I am so sorry that I never got to thank you for sending me this, but I really appreciate it. I personally love having multiple editions of books that I love, and it makes me happy. So the next book I have is You Deserve Each Other, and I feel like if I had to talk about this book one more time and I'm going to scream. Okay, so You Deserve Each Other, I gave this book 4 stars. I really liked it. I cannot wait for Sarah's second book, Twice Shy. It's not a sequel or anything. It's not like in the same series. It's just another book, but I just really love this book. This book is about this couple who they're engaged and they're kind of falling out of love with each other, and they don't really want to cancel the wedding because whoever cancels it has to pay all the money, and like nobody wants to do that, even though I don't know why, because the husband is more rich, but whatever. Basically kind of have this banter with each other where they're kind of trying to set the other person off, but they don't want to do it obviously, so they try to do it like sneakily, if that makes sense. And I just thought that this book was so funny. It was so fun. The next book on this list is the Kiss Quotient, and I read this for the first time this year, last year, 2020, I don't care. And I'm so excited because the final book is coming out this year and I just cannot wait. But the Kiss Quotient is basically about this girl who is on the spectrum, and she kind of basically wants to learn how to do the nasty, basically. And so she ends up meeting this guy, and this is about Michael, who's the main guy. Yes, Michael. And he is an escort, and she ends up hiring him to teach her how to like be good at it. And then they end up kind of start to form this fake relationship, and I personally really enjoyed it. I thought it was so cute, it was so smutty, it was so good, and I love the characters. And the next book follows his cousin. So this book is about this girl, and she is moving in with her sister because her sister she was hospitalized, and she just has to take care of her sister, and her sister has a daughter who is like in high school, and so she is going to help them out. The daughter, she always works at this Renaissance fair, so to be a great aunt, she goes to work there with her. And at this Renaissance fair, she ends up meeting this guy who's a pirate, who is a complete jerk to her. But it's so interesting because when they're like having their meetings, he's so mean to her, but as a pirate, they literally have like this whole romantic relationship going on. But like then they'll have like a meeting afterwards and he'll be mean, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I loved it so much. And then the next book is another romance, and that is Take a Hint, Danny Brown. Y'all should have known this was gonna be on here. So this didn't make top 10 because I am sorry, but there's just so many good books in my top 10, you know. So this book is about Danny Brown, and she is the second eldest Brown sister. She is going to college, but she also works at this college as a professor, and she has this thing with this guy named Zaf, and he's like the security guard, and they have like this little friendship. But one day she gets stuck in an elevator and he carries her out, and someone records the video and it goes viral, and they have to fake date because the viral video helps both of them out, but it helps him out a lot because he has this rugby team, and he has this thing with rugby and mental health, and it really helps bring business to that. And I just thought that this book was so good. The smut was good, it was very important. I love these characters, and I cannot wait to read the last Brown sister book. Back into fantasy. The next book is Vampire Academy. I read this book for the first time this year. I love the Vampire Academy movie growing up, and I just never picked it up. I read this book for a video where I read paranormal romances that are like other ones. So I read this one, and then I read Half-Love by Jennifer and Armentrout. Everyone compared that book to each other, which is ironic because that book ended up on my worst books of the year, and this one ended up on my best books of the year. But Half-Blood literally was a carbon copy of this book. But I loved Vampire Academy. I thought I wasn't gonna love it because I just keep thinking that when I read these YA like staple books that like I'm just gonna be like, man, whatever. But I really loved it. I loved Rose. I love how like sex positive this book was, and I like I said, I love Rose as a character. I like the romance between Rose and what's his name. I hated him in the movie. He was so ugly in the movie to me, but in the book I just picture him as somebody hot, and like I kind of care, but like not really. And I have a favorite character in this book, and then I read the second book and I had to put it down because it just made me so sad. And I am ready to pick it up again this year, so I'm just gonna speed right on through the rest of the books, and then I'm also gonna start Bloodlines this year. Next I have Kingdom of the Wicked, and this book I really enjoyed. I need the Fairy Loot edition, and also petition for James Patterson to stop putting these ugly ass headers on top of his books because he ruins them. And I don't know about you guys, but to me it just seems very egotistical to have your name. Like Rick Riordan doesn't do that for his books, you know, like he doesn't do that. Anyways, so Kingdom of the Wicked is a fantasy book about this girl. She has a twin sister, and her twin sister ends up dying, and she sees the Prince of Death, I believe he is, standing over her body, like licking her blood, and she's just so mortified, and she wants to figure out what happened to her sister. So she ends up summoning that prince, and it turns out he actually just doesn't know what happened. Like, he is the Prince of Death, and so they end up having to work together to find out what is going on, because the issue is a lot bigger than what it is. I like the book, but the writing was very meh. What I feel like Carrie Maniscal has a very specific audience. I personally like the book, but I think that she has a very specific audience. Like, I think if you like Stalking Jack the Ripper, you're definitely like this, but if you didn't like Stalking Jack the Ripper, you probably won't like this. The writing isn't all that amazing, the plot isn't all that amazing. I was just there for the banter. I was just there for the banter, okay? I will tell you one thing, Carrie can write a romance, okay? She can write an enemies to lovers romance. Can she write period? No, but she can write a romance, and the banter was good. And I want to reread this book because I loved Amelia and Wrath. And when this book was first coming out, I thought this book was a carbon copy of The Cruel Prince, because like the cover and the plot about a twin sister and a prince, but they're really not the same at all, and I really like that. And the Prince of Hell, we love him. And so the next book is Paper Princess. Now y'all, if you read this book is so problematic, okay? I am sorry, but this book is so problematic. This book is about this girl who's a stripper at like 17, and she ends up being discovered in the strip club by this guy who is a friend of her dad's. Mom is nowhere to be found. Her dad passed away, which is why she's a stripper. And so the guy is basically trying to be Captain Save-A-Ho and come and help her out, and he ends up being really rich. So she goes to go live with his family. The sons hate her because they think that she is basically just trying to get with their dad because of his money. And there's so much drama, so much tea, so much going on, so many people hooking up, backstabbing. Ugh, I loved it. I ate it up. It is problematic, but who cares? I always tell people that this book literally is like watching a reality TV show. It has nothing to, there's no reality TV show in this plot line, but I'm saying like it's literally like watching a reality TV show. You want to look away, but you just can't, and it's so good. Down to our last 3 books before we get to my top 10. So the next book I have is The Villain, which I read this book in December, which is why you probably never seen me talk about it. And this book is a sequel to the other book, The Hunter, and this book is about this, it's basically a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It is about this guy named Killian and this girl named Persephone. And Persephone is very much happy person, like always looking out for people, always wanting the best for people, and she is in love with Killian. So like this was like a few years ago, so she ends up getting older. She had a husband. Her husband literally is nowhere to be found. He got involved with this freaking mafia, and he fled the country, took all their money and everything, and so she is stuck with no money, and this mafia is after her, and she's looking for money. Her friends are actually telling her to go to like his brother Hunter, which is the first book, or like some other friends, because they're like really rich. But she goes to Killian because she doesn't want her friends to know. Like, she's so embarrassed her friends doesn't know that the guy that she married was a terrible person. So she goes to Killian, and at first he says no, but then Hunter, which is the first book, he ends up having a baby, and the baby is set to be an heir if it's a boy. And so Killian is like, no, like I need to have the heir because he's the heir of this company. So he ends up coming up with this plan with Persephone to marry me, and you can have all the money that you want and just have my children, and you'll just live a good life. And so they agreed to that. And it's I just love this book because LJ shouldn't really put her foot into this book. Like her other books I didn't really enjoy, but both characters got personalities. Both characters had their own storylines. Both characters had their own backstories. I think that the storyline touch in this book is so good, and it introduced me to one of my favorite characters, Sam. I know he's literally insane, and this book low-key has like a little found family trope. I love the group in this book. The next 2 books on this list are Cassandra Clare books, because I read all of Cassandra Clare books in February, and no, I will not stop saying that because it is an accomplishment to read all 19 books in a series in one entire month. Okay, so the first book is Sixteenth Heaven Fire, and this is the last book in the series, and I think this book just surprised me. I'm obviously not going to talk much about it, but I personally think that this book just surprised me because the first book was a 3-4 star to me, but that's basically just pure nostalgia, and then like the rest of the books in the middle were just 2-3 stars. They were never fully a 4-5 star. And then I got to this book, and it introduces the characters in this book, and there are kids in this book, so it introduces them, and it's just a conclusion. And I think it was just so well, and so much happened, and I just love this book. Like, so much happened in this book. Like, obviously she's a thick one. Next book is Lady Midnight, and this book I can actually tell you about. So this book follows this girl named Emma and this boy named Julian, and Julian has a bunch of siblings, and he's the oldest sibling, so he's taking care of them, and Emma just lives with them because she's basically like orphaned. And I forgot the entire plotline of this book. I personally just love the characters in this book, and I love the family trope, and there is a trope that a lot of people didn't like, but parabatai falling in love with each other, because like they're basically already soulmates. So in my mind, parabatai falling in love with each other makes sense because they're already, parabatai are soulmates. Like, they're deeper than soulmates. So in my mind, it was bound to happen, and like it's basically like forbidden, so it's kind of like this forbidden love. And I just love Julian. A lot of people hate him. I thought he was just so angsty and just a teen, and I enjoyed it. And I love the family. I love Ty and Kit and Drew, and the side characters, Kieran, Christine, and Mark. Beautiful. This is my baby, and a lot of people do not enjoy the first book as much as they enjoy the other two, but I ate them up, okay? This was my baby. Now we are on to our top 10. So the first book on my top 10 list is When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole, and this book was one of the hotties picked, but I actually ended up reading this before the hotties. And this book is about this girl who lives in this apartment building, and she's noticing that the people around her are disappearing, and her town is slowly being gentrified. And so then there also comes in the male character Theo, and he's white, and he has a white girlfriend, and she's like a part of the people who are like helping gentrify this town. And so there's something going on beneath the surface, and it's really worrying both of these characters. And so the main character and Sydney, the main character, and Theo end up working together just to end up finding out what happens, but they can't really trust each other, but they also can't trust anyone else, so it's like they kind of have no choice but to work together. And I just thought this book was 5 out of 5 stars because it really reminded me of Jordan Peele, like a Get Out kind of thing, and it gave me very realistic. Like, what happened in this book, like, literally could happen. Gentrification, the plot twist, like, all of this was so realistic. It was actually scary. And then the next book on this list is Chain of Gold, and I just love this book so much. So this book is after the Infernal Devices, but if you guys want to see a reading order suggestion for this series, let me know, because I have no problem with doing it. I personally love Chain of Gold. This follows Cordelia, and she is my favorite shadow hunter. I love her so much. She is a baddie. And then it follows ensemble of characters. It follows the children of the characters in the Infernal Devices, and you also get to see the characters in the Infernal Devices as parents. And I just loved it. Like, this is how you do a sequel following the kids of an important book, okay? This is how you do it. It has James and like all the other guys being like merry thieves, and I just love the idea of like in the Infernal Devices all of them becoming friends, and then them having kids and their kids are friends. Like, that is like the best thing, and like they're cousins and friends and like all this stuff. And this book was just so fun, and I loved reading from Cordelia's part, and drama, and I just cannot wait for Chain of Iron. The Chain of Iron cover is ugly as hell, and I said I wasn't gonna get it, but I need it on my shelf, so I am gonna be getting it. I gotta move some stuff around because my Cassandra Clare shelf is already packed, as y'all can see. Cassandra Clare has me by the neck now, and it's so funny because I was like, why would I read a 19-book series just to prepare for this one book? And I did exactly that. And I loved it. It's on my top 10 list now. How ironic. How ironic. Next book is From Blood and Ash, which I love this book. Oh, this book, she's thick. She's thick. I love this book enough. I spent $30 on this hardcover. Actually $60 because both of these are $30. So From Blood and Ash is about this main character named Poppy, and she is a maiden, and she is basically set to never talk or look at anyone unless like she's like inside the house basically. And she ends up going to this tavern, and she's just there chilling. Like, people around this have sex, they drink, they smoke, they do whatever, and she ends up meeting Hawk. He kisses her because he thinks she's someone else, and she like runs off, and she's like she'll never see him again, so she thinks. And also what a maiden is a maiden is someone who helps people ascend, and she also was supposed to ascend herself. And basically when you ascend, you become immortal. And so it follows immortality, and I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil anything. So if that sounds interesting to you, read it. Fantasy, this is really fantasy romance, so if you love romance and you love fantasy, pick this book up. I feel like if you love romance, you should pick this book up, period. But if you're the kind of person who reads fantasy and you don't really care for romance, I wouldn't suggest this book. But if you love romance, if you love smut, pick this book up and you will not be disappointed. Okay, so the next book I have is The Black Kids, and this book is about this girl, and she is in high school and she is black, and all of her friends are white. The guy she's interested in is white, and this rioting starts and her sister gets involved in it. So of course she ends up getting involved with it as well, and she ends up noticing like this boy from school. He's a black boy, and they kind of end up having like this closer relationship, and she kind of sees like, damn, my friends kind of ain't shit and they're kind of low-key racist. And not all of them obviously, but there's some friends in her friend group who are racist, and then her other friends just let it slide or whatever. She even lets it slide. She's just learning that like these things that she allows in her life is just not okay. And I personally enjoyed it. I had a ball reading this book. It made me so upset, and I think that any book that sparks emotion is a good book personally. Like if you are able to make me angry, first of all, because I already struggle with emotion now, so if you make me feel something, you already getting like a 4-star. Unless it's just like a terrible book, then it's just a no. Next book is The Bride Test, which is a sequel to the Kiss Quotient. And The Bride Test is about Kai, who's the cousin of Michael, and Kai is on the spectrum, and his mom ends up going to Vietnam to find him a wife, and she ends up finding Suzume, who is mixed race. They end up having like lived together, and it's not that he doesn't want to be with her, but he doesn't want his mom hooking him up with people. And then she is poor, she's trying to provide for her family, and so she goes to live with this random guy in the United States where she's never been before, and she just is having this different life. And I really love this book because it was not Marriage to Convenience, but it was almost Marriage to Convenience. And let me just tell you, the smut scene in this book just hit, to be honest. That's the reason why I love this book so much. The smut scenes hit, the angst hit. I just love this book so much. Like, it was. And the next book is Clap When You Land, and this book is about a girl whose father dies in a plane crash, and she ends up finding out that she has a sister, and it follows perspective of both of them. So like literally it happens for both of them, and then finding out that their dad literally was living the life of Hannah Montana and had a daughter in the US and then a daughter in the Dominican Republic. And it's just like, that's just crazy because apparently that happens often, and it just brings these two sisters together. And I cried in this book. Of course, it's an Elizabeth Acevedo book. In this book, it just has so many good quotes. She can write her ass off. She can make you feel things, and I just love this book. I was hesitant to pick this up because contemporary is just not my thing, but I loved Poet X, so I was like, okay, I'll just pick it up anyways. And so I realized that I think I like hard-hitting contemporary because The Black Kids is the same thing, and I love that. So I don't think contemporary romance is my thing, but hard-hitting contemporary, like, yes, that is, gave it to me now. And so you knew this book was coming, and that is Daily Education. And this book is about this girl named Elle who is Indian and English, and she is going to this school called the School of Men's, where there are no teachers and no holiday breaks, and there are creatures lurking around the school all the time. And there is Orion who keeps saving her life and is getting on her nerves, so she decides she wants to kill him. And I thought this book was so good because there was different kind of monsters for everything. There was a monster in the shower, so people had to shower in groups. So it's like everybody was just out here smelling like ass because everybody was scared to go to the showers. There were like monsters outside of the school, so if you wanted somebody's room, you could push them into the void and then you could have their room. I also loved Elle as a character. I loved Elle. She was one of my favorite characters, and I think it's just because she reminds me of me. And like, I know a lot of people didn't like this book because they said she was annoying, but I was like, this is me. Like, there's this plot line where Orion keeps saving her life, and so people start to think they're dating, so she just goes along with it because it gets the popular kids to get off her back. And now she has people she can shower with and people she can go to lunch with, and basically just looking out for herself. And I was like, yeah, relatable. The next book I have is Middle Game. I love this book. I read this because Jocelyn recommended this to me, and I know that like whatever book Jocelyn loves, I'm gonna love. And this book is basically about these twins named Roger and Dodger, and they have a quantum entanglement, which is literally just being able to be in each other's mind, but just like science. From a young age, they think they have like imaginary friends, but then they are able to like see through each other's eyes. Like there's one day Dodger is taking a test and Roger's literally telling her, oh, Roger's the boy, Dodger's the girl. Dodger's taking this test and Roger's like literally telling her like what to do because he's really good at spelling, and then Dodger's really good at math, and it just follows them throughout their entire life, and just them like meeting each other and then being annoyed with each other, and then their minds being erased and meeting each other and being annoyed with each other. It's like literally the point of the story is the fact that these things are happening over and over again. I don't know, a lot of people didn't like that book for that reason, but it's like literally the point. And I did not think I was gonna like this book. Like, once again, a case of Mayana thinking she is too stupid for a book, and then I ended up eating it up. The next book on this list is Cemetery Boys, and I have raved about this book so much. This book is about the main character named Yadriel, and he is a brujo, and all he wants to do is prove to his family that he is a real brujo. And he gets the chance when he finds out that the school bad boy is dead, after he also ends up finding out that his cousin is dead. So he goes on this adventure to figure out what is happening, because if he can figure it out, he can prove to his family like, yo, I'm a real brujo, because he knows that he is one. I ate this book up. He has his cousin named Maritza, and literally the depiction of POC cousins. Like, if you and your cousin are not best friends, what the heck. The last book on this list is The Inheritance Games, and this book is about this girl. It's basically like Knives Out kind of. It's about this girl who is poor, and she lives with her sister because her mom passed away. She never really knew like where her dad was, and so she is taking this test, which I really hope that the test plays into this plot line, because she takes this test and she gets an A, and then the teacher's like, no one's ever passed this test, like, you cheated, so take the test again. And she's like, all right, bet, I'll take the test right now. Takes the test. We never found out anything about the test, so it better come into plot line in book 2, because I literally sat here thinking this entire book, what the fuck did the test have to do with anything? But anyways, so yeah, she's in the office with the principal, and then he's like, he calls her the next day and she's like, shit, I got my results. And he's like, actually, you're here to go with this family because this guy has you his will. And she's like, what the heck, why am I in this guy's will? Like, I don't know him. So she goes to this family, and she ends up like, they read the will, and he leaves her everything. He leaves her all of his money, he leaves her all of his business, his house, and the house is like crazy, and he really was into games. So it's really just about like them playing games to like find out why is he giving her this money, because everybody's accusing her of stealing from them and tricking them and all this stuff, basically literally just like Knives Out. And I ate this book up. I loved it so much. That is it for my best books of 2020. 30 books is like really freaking crazy. I need to get a life. I enjoy reading. It's not a burden for me, it's not a competition for me. I just like to read because I love always reading. It keeps me busy. I am a Virgo, so I feel like if I don't do something productive on my days off, then I am not doing anything at all, and reading is productive to me. Now that the holiday season is over, all I have is time, so I have nothing but time to read, and I don't mind that. Yeah, thank you for watching this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. If you are watching this video, leave a dolphin emoji because of the color that I'm wearing. And I'll see you guys in my next video.